Hi everyone, I'm Yos from PICO. In this video, I will be introducing you to the PICO Avatar SDK. Avatars are a key element in creating engaging and immersive experiences, whether you are building an XR app for gaming, productivity, or social interaction. I will guide you through the basics of integrating and working with PICO Avatar SDK in Unity step by step. Let's dive in and get started. We will be focusing on loading the main user's avatar, testing the avatars in the Unity editor, and accessing Avatar Hub. Our main requirements are PICO Avatar SDK 2.1.0 and PICO Unity Integration SDK 3.0.5. Okay, let's create a Unity project. I'm using Unity 2022 353. This is going to be a URP project. Let's type in the project name and create project. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to set our target platform to Android. Then we are going to be integrating the SDKs we're going to use in this project. So the first one is PICO Unity Integration SDK, and the other one is PICO Unity Avatar SDK. I'm using PICO Developer Center to download the SDKs. Okay, let's import the downloaded SDK files into the project. I'm gonna simply copy and paste the SDK packages here into the packages folder inside the project. After importing the SDKs, you might notice these three errors in the console window, which are caused by deprecated body tracking APIs. But don't worry, we will resolve these by adding a compiler directive into the project settings. When you see this prompt, just click yes. This is related to the new input system. Okay, now clicking agree so that the SDK can configure some of the project settings for us. And on the screen, just click apply. Let's have a look at project settings ourselves as well. Let's go to XR plugin management and enable PICO. I'm using multi-view rendering. In the player settings, let's add the company name here. I'm going to be using Vulkan. It's important to select XYZ as the normal map encoding. I'm going to add the package name. Another important thing is to set the target API level to API 29. This is required for PICO4 Ultra headsets. Let's have a look at the quality settings. The Avatar SDK package already has one quality settings configuration in it, so we can use this one. This is, you can think of it like as like a recommended settings. I'm going to be using this one, but of course you are free to configure your project and play with these settings based on the needs of your project. Okay, the next step is to create an application on PICO Developer Console. I'm going to go ahead and create one. I'm going to call it Getting Started with Avatar SDK. It's going to be a 6th platform. Okay, now I'm going to enable the avatar service, which is under the platform service section here. It asks me to type in my scenario of using Avatar SDK. Okay. There are 3 application modes. I'm going to be choosing public mode, which allows me to use user-generated avatars as well. I'm going to go to the API test section here to grab the app ID. I need this ID to access the platform services, including the avatar service. So I'm going to copy it and paste it to the platform settings window here in the project. I want to test Avatar SDK integration in the editor as well. So I'm going to go ahead and configure the PC debug settings here. I'm choosing the region as international. Then I'm going to grab an access token from the PICO Developer console. And paste it here. I also have to set the nation type of the Avatar SDK. In my case, it's overseas. Let's start creating the scene. I'm going to be using some samples. One of them is from the X-Ray toolkit. I'm going to import the starter assets. And then I'm going to import PICO Avatar samples from the PICO Avatar SDK package. I'm going to rename this scene and remove main camera and the global volume. Okay, let's add XR interaction setup. This is from the starter assets. On the XR origin game object, I'm going to change the tracking origin mode to floor, and then I'm going to add a PXR manager component. Since we don't need a camera offset, I'm going to go ahead and reset the transform of the camera offset game object. Okay, let's get PICO Avatar app prefab into the scene as well. So the PICO Avatar app script is a central component in the Avatar SDK. It's responsible for initializing the SDK and providing an interface to manage the global avatar settings. It also simplifies the integration and control of avatars in the application. Okay, now we are ready to create our user avatar. I'm gonna go ahead and create an empty object, which is gonna serve as a wrapper for the actual avatar object. And I'm gonna place it under the XR origin. It's gonna be at the same level as the main camera. Okay, let's create a script to load the avatar now. I'm gonna name this script as user avatar. And then I'm going to attach this script to the user avatar object I created. Okay, let's write some code now. As you know from the PICO Developer console, we already started the avatar service, which means we need to initialize the platform services inside our code now. So I'm going to go ahead and create an awake method, and inside the awake method, we will initialize the core service. And then I'm going to write down a couple of steps that we need to take before we can load the avatars. First, we need to request permissions from the user to load their user avatar. And then we will retrieve the access token. Then we will ensure that the PICO Avatar app has been started and running. And then we will be able to load the user avatar. So let's go ahead and create the methods which are responsible for each step. This part is going to be pretty straightforward. We are going to be just calling a couple of platform service APIs. The first one is going to be getting the permissions from the user to load their avatar or access the user's user ID. So here I'm requesting the user permissions, user info, and avatar are my parameters here. Then once I ensure that I have a response from the service, then I'm gonna call the other method, which is get access token. Here it's going to be another simple API call. Get access token method is also in the user service class. Once we have the access token, I'm going to store it in the access token field I defined above in the class. Again, it's a simple user service API call to get the logged in user. And let's assign the user ID data returned from the service to the user ID field we defined above. I'm going to define a flag here. I'm going to use this flag to determine if all my platform API calls are done, and then it means we are ready to start the PICO Avatar app. Here I'm going to add another control just to make sure that the PICO Avatar app is working. Okay, now we can start the PICO Avatar Manager. To do that, we just need to set this access token here. Okay, the Avatar Manager is starting. While it's doing its own initialization, we have to wait for it. That's why I'm adding this control here. And then I will just call the load avatar method. Now I'm going to use PICO Avatar Manager to load the avatar. And you see I need to pass a parameter to the load avatar method, and it's called avatar load context. So I'm going to go ahead and create avatar load context object, which requires a user ID. There are other parameters like a JSON object and capabilities. At this moment, JSON object, JSON string is not important. So we're just going to use the user ID, and we will define some capabilities of the avatar. There are many different capabilities that you can set. For this main user avatar, I'm just going to set only a couple of them. The first one is going to be the manifestation type. I'm going to set it to full body. You can set it to half body or head and hands. Next one I'm going to set is control source type. I'm going to set it to main player. The other options are NPC and other player. And I'm going to set body culling. This is for avatars which have their clothes overlapping with their body mesh. So this feature allows the body mesh to be removed if they are overlapping with the clothes. There's a useful static method inside the avatar load context class. So I'm going to change here a little bit and use that method here. Okay, let's pass avatar load context as the first parameter here. And the second parameter is a callback function. The inputs in the callback function are avatar and avatar entity objects. I'm going to do some basic checks here. So this play animation line is not really needed because this avatar is going to pick up the input from the controllers and the headset. Now we have a PICO Avatar instance. So I want to set this current object as its parent, and then I'm going to just reset its position and rotation. Okay, I think we are ready to test this implementation. So I'm going to go ahead and get a build and run it on the headset. Now it's running on the headset, and as you can see, it's requesting permissions to load avatar and get the user information. And my avatar has been loaded. So here you can see that avatar's hands and the controllers are not exactly matching. This is because the avatar's body is managed by an IK system, and the controller's position are directly coming from the actual controllers. Now I would like to go back to the Unity editor to see what we can do to make the hands match the actual controller positions. Before making any changes to the avatar, I want to first ensure I can load avatars directly in the Unity editor. To be able to do that, I just need to skip the part where we request user permissions. So I don't need this method call if I'm running in the editor. I'm just going to add a compiler directive here to bypass this user permission request. And in the editor, we will jump straight to requesting an access token. Okay, now let's start Unity in play mode to see if the avatar is going to load. Okay, great, my avatar is loaded. Next, I need to enable avatar movement within the editor for testing purposes. To achieve this, I can use the editor input device component. And fortunately, the Avatar SDK samples include a ready-to-use prefab, which simplifies this process for us. As you can see, this component includes reference transforms, such as head, left hand, and right hand. By using these transforms, we will be controlling the avatar. There's also this user ID field here. So we are going to use this field to identify which avatar to control. Let me quickly add something here. I don't want the avatar floating in empty space, so I'm going to add a floor underneath. Okay, the floor is done. Now back to the tutorial. So I just need my user ID. I'm going to simply log it to the console window. Okay, now we are ready to run the editor to collect my user ID. Yes, my user ID is here. Let's copy and paste it into the editor input device. Okay, let's run the editor again. Now let's see how the avatar is going to move around when I play with these transforms. You'll notice that the avatar's arms don't stretch beyond a certain limit. Let's head back to the code and see if we can adjust this to allow for greater arm extension. Most of the IK-related functionality is handled by the body anim controller and biped IK controller components. To enable stretching for specific body parts, you can use the set stretch enable interface. And here I am going to set the arms to stretch up to 3 meters just for demonstration purposes. Additionally, I will remove the rotational limitations on the wrists. I'm going to call this method right after the avatar has been loaded. Okay, now let's run the editor again to test our implementation. And here is how it looks in the headset. We haven't done it yet, but actually we need to hide the head section of the avatar to prevent the main camera's view from being obstructed by it. So that's why I'm just adding this line here. And let's have a quick look in the editor. Before moving on to the final part of this tutorial, I want to make a couple of minor adjustments. First, I will swap out the input system version of this tracked pose driver for the non-input system version. This ensures the app can continue receiving input even if it loses focus, such as when a system UI pops up. And second, I will remove the controller models from the hands. Alright, to wrap up this tutorial, I would like to show you how users can change or modify their avatar while still in your application. To demonstrate this, I will quickly build a basic scene with a button that opens the PICO Avatar Hub. Then we will add a callback method to detect if the user has made any changes to their avatar, and based on that, we will reload the avatar. I'm going to use this push button, which comes as a part of Unity's XRI sample package. I'm going to quickly add some color to my scene and a script for the button interaction. Then let's attach this script to the button object. In this script, I'm going to simply call the avatar editor or avatar hub. The first parameter is no longer needed, so I'm just passing null. And the second parameter is a callback function, which informs us whether the avatar editor has started successfully or not. Alright, I want the avatar editor to open when I press this button. So I'm assigning the open avatar hub method to the select action here. Okay, this button is in the center, so I'm just going to move it a little bit. Alright, let's return to the user avatar code. I want to add an avatar change listener to detect any changes and reload the avatar if it has been modified. And when the user's avatar changes, we receive a string input that helps us determine whether the avatar needs to be reloaded. This string can represent one of 7 different conditions. You can find the descriptions of each condition in the script I just pasted here, and only the conditions 1, 2, and 4 need the avatar to be reloaded. So I'm gonna call the reload avatar method only for these inputs. So here in this reload avatar method, we will start by unloading the avatar. To do this, I need a reference to the avatar object. I will assign it to a variable at the class level so I can reuse it later for unloading. Once that's done, I can simply call load user avatar to load the user's avatar again. Alright, let's test our implementation on the headset. Now I can choose any avatar, including those created by other PICO users. And once I close the hub, my avatar reloads. Great! I hope you found this tutorial helpful. See you in the next video.